Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're taking a bit of a chilling journey. We're exploring a collection of true, really unsettling encounters. These things happened in some of the most isolated corners of the world. We've got a stack of first-hand accounts here, stories from, like, remote Australian farms, the Pyrenees Mountains, even quiet rural American towns.
Yeah.
And these aren't made up. These are real moments when, the ordinary just twisted into something genuinely terrifying.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how often these things happen in places where, well, the usual safety nets just aren't there. Or they're stretched really thin. It really makes you wonder, right? What happens when you're completely alone, miles from help, and something or someone just appears out of nowhere?
Yeah, exactly. So our mission today is to unpack these real-life horror stories, not just for the scare factor, though there is that, but to understand the psychology behind it, the little signs of danger maybe, and just see what chilling insights we can get from experiences that, honestly, will make you rethink going too far off the beaten path. So let's dive in and see what's lurking just beyond the edge of civilization. Okay, our first story takes us to rural Australia. Really vast, isolated. Picture this. You're 19 years old, working on this massive farm. It's huge, like the size of Maryland in the U.S. You're a 9-hour drive from Sydney, and even the nearest small town is, 40 minutes away. So truly out there. It's a brutally hot summer day, like 38 Celsius, just sweltering. And our narrator and the farm owner, this pretty relaxed guy named Jeremy, they decide, okay, let's go to the water hole for a swim. They're driving across this huge empty landscape, maybe 20 minutes in, pretty quiet. Then Jeremy suddenly points. Way off in the distance, there's this big blue angular thing. It's a massive shipping container just sitting there, completely out of place. And Jeremy, he has absolutely no idea how it got there. Says he didn't see it 5 weeks ago on the same track.
Right, that's the first alarm bell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something totally unexpected in a place, like the back of your hand. Your brain just immediately flags it as wrong, an anomaly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as they drive closer, the narrator starts feeling this really strong sense of dread, like a physical feeling that something is deeply wrong, just this object sitting there in the middle of nowhere. But Jeremy, it's his land. He wants to check it out. Understandably, someone's trespassing, putting stuff on his property. But the closer they get, the weirder it is. There's a diesel generator behind it, just thumping away, and CCTV cameras, motion-activated ones, on all four sides. They start buzzing and tracking them as they approach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the narrator's like, Jeremy, maybe we should just go. All this security. Someone clearly doesn't want us here. But Jeremy's determined. He wants to see inside. And here's the weird thing. Despite all the cameras and the generator, the huge door is just held shut by a small padlock.
Oh, seems inconsistent.
Right. And Jeremy just happens to have bolt cutters in his truck. So, after a bit of effort, snap, they break the lock, the door swings open, and the first thing that hits them is this rush of freezing cold, air-conditioned air, which, on a day that hot was actually kind of welcome for a second. Inside, though, it's just bizarre. It's this advanced, sophisticated IT setup, but it's cluttered. LEDs flashing everywhere, hard drives the size of small fridges lining the walls, sometimes stacked 2 or 3 high, multiple monitors on desks. It felt like, the narrator said, like a nonsensical dream, just completely out of context.
That is surreal. These kinds of hidden remote IT setups, they pop up for all sorts of reasons. Could be anything, really. Massive crypto mining operations that use tons of power and need secrecy, or dark web servers, maybe offshore data storage, trying to avoid scrutiny. The isolation is key. But yeah, that level of tech implies something big and almost certainly illegal.
Definitely. They try looking at the screens, but it's computer talk. Like old download lists, nothing makes sense. So after a bit, the narrator, feeling super uneasy, wanders over to some storage boxes piled up. He knows he probably shouldn't, but he opens one. And what he finds, it's just horrifying. Folders, small boxes, photos, DVDs, posters, all packed with neatly organized, explicit child abuse material. He said the way it was all sorted and labeled, that's what really, really sickened him.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He just immediately recoils, grabs Jeremy, pulls him out. He can barely even speak to explain what he saw. They scramble back in the truck, floor it back to the farmhouse, but there's no mobile signal out there, no satellite phone. They have to use the landline, and the nearest police station is like an hour's drive away.
And that delay.
Yeah.
That's critical in situations like this, isn't it? Especially in remote areas. By the time help actually arrives, whoever was there has a huge head start. Evidence can disappear.
Which is exactly what happened. Almost an hour later, the police finally get there. The narrator and Jeremy take them back out to the container location, and it's on fire. just engulfed in flames. By the time the rural fire brigade arrives, it's mostly gutted. Later, an arson report by federal police finds almost nothing left of the computer gear the narrator saw, just traces of paper, cardboard, which means whoever was running it knew they'd been discovered.
Wow.
They had time to clear out the important stuff, torch the rest, and vanish. And on a property that size, countless ways to escape, untraceable. The investigation just went cold, no leads, no suspects. The container apparently is still out there. Too expensive to move. Just a silent, horrible reminder.
That's deeply disturbing. It really shows how criminals can use that sheer isolation, that remoteness, not just to operate, but to get away clean. The lack of oversight is their shield.
Okay, let's shift gears. Our next story is from September 2010. 4 friends driving back from a summer spent in London. We have the narrator, her boyfriend Dave, his best mate Tony, and her best friend Liz. They stop overnight at a B&B, wake up the next morning, go out to the car, and disaster. The right wing mirror is gone, broken clean off, and it was a birthday present, so she was really upset. Right, so they asked the landlady if she knows anywhere nearby they could maybe get a replacement. She's not sure, but she draws them this rough map to some kind of makeshift scrapyard she remembers seeing once. Warns them it might not even be there anymore. They follow her directions, and the roads just get worse and worse. Stone turns to dirt, leading them further and further out. They end up in this isolated cove, surrounded by forest. Really feels like the back of Beyond. And there it is. A tiny hut, a caravan, and just a big hill of scrap metal. Sun's up, but there's no one around. It's quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Tony finds an old mirror that looks like it might fit, suggests they just grab it and go. But the narrator, wanting to do the right thing, insists they should try and pay. So she goes and knocks on the hut door.
And this is interesting, psychologically. That impulse to be polite, to follow social rules, even when your gut might be starting to scream a warning, it's a common thing. But sometimes it can lead you into ignoring real danger signs.
That's a really good point. So a man answers. Hard face, looks tired and angry at first. Then he sees the narrator and his expression changes to this. Grin. She described it as a toothy bile grin. Instantly uncomfortable. He just stares at her for a few seconds, then asks what they want. Tony shows him the mirror, and the guy, Ian, says, "Oh, take it, it's free. I just want to get to know you a lot."
Red flag right there.
Huge one. Then 2 more men come out from behind the hut, both described as skinheads, teeth like, well, meth addicts, she said, and they smelled awful. Ian tells the 2 guys to go fit the mirror onto their car, then he offers the whole group sandwiches, but he insists the narrator has to come inside the hut to make them with him. Really sexist vibe, super uncomfortable. She politely refuses. Dave steps in, makes the refusal firmer.
Okay, so you've got the sudden switch from anger to this creepy over-friendliness, the immediate appearance of backup, the free offer as a lure, and then the attempt to isolate the narrator by getting her inside. These are all classic predatory moves, pushing boundaries, testing reactions.
Then it just keeps getting worse. Ian starts asking really personal questions, like prying into their lives. Super intrusive. Suddenly, Liz screams from the car. One of the men, the one supposedly fixing the mirror, had reached into the back seat and grabbed her leg.
Oh, she knows.
At the same time, Dave notices something by the front wheel. Nails. Like a dozen nails, carefully placed around the tire, clearly meant to puncture it if they tried to drive off. Okay, now they know. This is bad. Forget the mirror. They need to get out now. They all pile back into the car as fast as possible. Tony's the last one in, slams the back door shut, and just as he does, Ian comes running out of the hut again. And he's holding a hunting rifle. Yeah. The narrator just loses it, bursts into tears, slams the accelerator. She drives like crazy, 90 miles an hour over these bumpy dirt roads, just hitting potholes, anything, desperate to get away. They don't stop looking over their shoulders until they're finally safely back on the motorway. She says even now, years later, she avoids driving to London. She takes the train, just haunted by the fear of running into those men again.
And that lasting trauma, it just shows the deep psychological scar an encounter like that can leave. How quickly just looking for a car part turns into this terrifying, life-threatening ordeal because they were isolated and unlucky enough to stumble onto people with truly bad intentions.
Yeah.
It really changes your view of the world.
Absolutely. It really does. And, sometimes the threat isn't a sudden ambush like that. Sometimes it's slower, more drawn out. Which brings us to our next story from rural Wisconsin. The narrator lives in a decent-sized town, maybe 11,000 people, but she's driving out into the country to her employer's house. And this ratty blue car pulls up behind her, driven by a bald man, and he starts tailgating her aggressively. She tries different things, slows down, hoping he'll pass, speeds up a bit, even flips him off. But he just stays right there, kissing her bumper, as she put it, doing 50 on this empty country road. no one else around. She's starting to get really freaked out. She pretends to take a picture of his car with her phone, pretends to call 911. Doesn't deter him. He follows her when she turns. He even follows her around about twice.
Yeah.
Clearly just trying to intimidate her now.
Yeah, this isn't just bad driving anymore. It's crossed a line.
Yeah.
It's moved from maybe road rage to deliberate, sustained intimidation. He's targeting her, trying to exert control, make her afraid. That's a totally different, much scarier dynamic.
Right. So she realizes, okay, this isn't random. She abandons her route to her employer's house and heads straight for the police station in town. And the blue car follows her the entire way. She pulls into a parking spot right by the station door, ready to bolt inside. But the guy doesn't drive off. He pulls in right next to her, super close on her driver's side, making it hard for her to even open her door fully.
Yeah.
And he just sits there, staring at her, wearing sunglasses with this creepy smile. The narrator actually has some training in behavioral analysis, a hobby in criminal profiling. She's trying to read him, wondering if he has a weapon, what he's going to do next. It's just this tense standoff for a few seconds. She starts to actually dial 911 for real this time. And as she does, the guy slowly rolls down his passenger side window, says absolutely nothing, then slowly rolls it back up and just drives away.
Wow. The silence there is almost louder than a threat, isn't it?
Totally. She goes inside, talks to an officer. Turns out they'd had several complaints recently about aggressive tailgaters. And yeah, some mentioned a blue car. But it gets weirder. Later that day, she goes back to her car and tucked under the windshield wiper a note. Just a hand-drawn smiley face, nothing else. She said it felt like serious horror movie stuff.
That's incredibly unsettling, that smiley face. Yeah. It's not random. It's a message. It's calculated psychological torment. It says, I know who you are. I know where you were. I can find you again. That ambiguity, that lingering uncertainty can be way more disturbing than a straightforward confrontation.
I can absolutely see that. So the police started doing extra patrols near her house, and she took extra precautions herself, like having her fiancé agree to call 911 immediately if she didn't text him, confirming she'd arrived safely somewhere. Just that constant low-level fear now. Okay, our fourth story. We're going back about 16 years ago to the Pyrenees Mountains over in Spain. Our narrator is 12 years old at a co-ed Boy Scout summer camp. They're doing a multi-day raid, which is basically a trek or expedition. Get this, it's a group of 15 kids, aged 12 to 14, and they're sent out totally on their own. No adult supervisors with them on the trek itself. Supposedly equipped with survival skills, but still pretty young to be alone in the mountains.
That sounds incredibly risky. 15 kids, no adults in the Pyrenees. Wow.
Right. So after a long day hiking, they find a spot miles from any road or village, really remote, and set up a makeshift shelter. Night starts to fall. A few kids go off to get water from a nearby source. When they come back to the trail leading to their camp, they find something that wasn't there before. It's one of those reflective marker poles you sometimes see on mountain roads, but it's been torn into pieces and left right by their path.
Oof. Okay, that's the kind of small, jarring detail that just shatters any sense of security, especially when you're already feeling vulnerable and isolated. It's wrong. It shouldn't be there.
Exactly. Panic just rips through the group. Kids start crying. Two of the older boys, both 14, decide they need to investigate. They grab a flashlight, a knife, and a whistle and head off into the dark. The others just huddle together in the shelter, terrified, sobbing, trying to sing songs to keep their spirits up, but mostly just scared. Then, piercing the silence, two sharp, urgent whistle blasts, the signal for trouble. The two boys come running back, looking completely exhausted and terrified. They report finding something else, a long-standing stick, maybe a hiking pole, just stuck in the ground nearby. And it was covered in blood. Lots of blood.
Oh.
Yeah. Now most of the kids are just hysterical, crying, praying. But the two older boys, incredibly bravely, decide they have to go back out again to confront whatever or whoever is out there. So they leave again. The others wait in the shelter, just in agonizing suspense. After what feels like forever, the two boys come back. And this time, they seem relieved. They tell everyone, it's okay, it was just a park ranger, he'd hunted a rabbit, that's what the blood was. So, okay, brief moment of relief. Everyone starts to calm down. But then one of the other older kids speaks up, points out some problems with the story, like the ranger wasn't wearing any kind of uniform, no badge, and who hunts rabbits with a stick miles from any road? At night, at that altitude in the mountains. It doesn't make sense.
That's sharp thinking, even under that much stress. Recognizing the inconsistencies, that ability to analyze, even when terrified, is crucial. But here, unfortunately, it just brought the fear crashing back because the explanation felt false.
Totally. The terror just floods back in. Worse, maybe, because now they think the boys led this ranger right back to their camp. He knows where they are. So these kids, 12 to 14 years old, they arm themselves with their camping knives, ready to fight for their lives against whoever might be coming. They hear running footsteps outside, screams getting louder and louder. Their two friends burst back into the shelter, followed by two men, and it's their camp leaders.
What?
Yeah. Turns out the leaders have been following them the whole time, hiding, watching them, leaving the clues, making the noises. They burst in laughing like, gotcha, it was just a joke.
Not a joke, that's psychological torture.
Exactly. The kids were absolutely traumatized, overwhelmed, terrified, pushed to the point where they were ready to use knives to defend themselves. They were not amused. The leaders eventually, apparently, realized how badly they'd misjudged it, how far they'd pushed these kids. Relief washed over the kids, sure, but then just anger. Deep anger. The narrator said it took months for them to trust those leaders again after what she calls the worst night of my life. And she still wonders, what if it had been real killers out there?
This story is just awful. It really highlights the damage caused by perceived threats, especially when it involves betrayal by people in authority. The mind, especially a child's mind, can't easily distinguish between a fake threat and a real one when all the signals scream danger. The trauma comes not just from the fear itself, but from that complete shattering of trust. Unforgivable, really.
Truly unforgivable. Okay, story number 5. We're in a small, remote coastal town. The narrator is in her early 20s. She and her friend get suddenly kicked out of the friend's father's house late one night. Apparently the dad was a psychotic and alcoholic, just threw them out. So they're stranded, no car. They have to walk 4 kilometers down this dark dirt road to get to the only phone booth in town to call for a ride. This is pre-mobile phone era for them. They finally get to the phone booth, make the call, are just sitting on a bench nearby waiting. Then a van pulls up, parks just like 5 meters behind them. Close, 2 young men in the front seats, and then the side door slides open. Inside, she sees a number of young guys packed in the back. Instantly, she feels incredibly vulnerable. It's late, deserted town, no one around, nowhere to run.
That combination, the isolation, the sudden appearance of multiple unknown men in a vehicle, the lack of escape routes, it triggers a very deep primal fear. The fear of being outnumbered, unseen, where normal social rules don't apply.
And the men in the van immediately start exploiting that fear. They begin talking, quietly at first, then deliberately louder, making sure the 2 women can hear them. And they're talking about grabbing them, about pulling us into the van and taking us somewhere to have their way with us and kill us.
Oh my God, just openly saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The narrator is just frozen, paralyzed with terror, can't speak, can't move. She remembers noticing the dead eyes of one of the men staring at her. Her friend, meanwhile, is still drunk and sobbing about her dad, completely oblivious to the immediate danger. Then something completely unexpected happens. A car pulls up. It's the friend's father, the same guy who kicked them out. Drunk, but he'd apparently felt bad and come after them, which was totally out of character for him.
A very unlikely rescuer.
Incredibly unlikely. So there's this brief, weird, emotional reunion. But the narrator can't take her eyes off the van. The men inside are just watching, silent now. They quickly get into the father's car. He starts driving away, and the van immediately pulls out and starts following them. Not fast, just crawling along right behind them. Men leaning out the window, shouting threats. They follow them all the way back down the dirt road, right into the father's driveway.
The fact that they pursued them all the way back, that shows a terrifying level of commitment. It wasn't just idle threats, it was deliberate intimidation, maybe making sure they knew how close they came.
Definitely. The van just sits there behind them in the driveway for what felt like an eternity. No neighbors around, just empty holiday homes, no one to help. Finally, eventually, the van just backs out slowly and drives away. But the experience just completely changed the narrator. She says it turned her into a very fearful person, made her incredibly overprotective of her own kids later in life. She said she'd rather be overprotective than accidentally trust one of the millions of psychos out there.
That's such a powerful statement. It shows how a single, terrifying event like that, especially one involving such a direct, prolonged threat, can fundamentally rewire your sense of safety and trust in the world. It changes your baseline.
It really does. Okay, next up, story 6 takes us to Memphis, Tennessee. On the outskirts of the city, the narrator was only 8 years old at the time. He and his older sister, who was 13, used to go for walks out near this kind of dirty, desolate industrial area, train tracks running through it, lots of dry, weedy grass. Not a place many people went, not many cars around. So one day, they're walking along the tracks, and the narrator spots some weird movement up ahead, maybe 40 feet away, just past a line of trees. They approach cautiously, trying to see what it is, and they realize it's a mime. of all things, a mime, kind of hidden among the trees and these thick dead vines.
A mime out there. That is bizarrely unsettling. It's like cognitive dissonance again, right? Something completely out of context. A performer figure lurking in a desolate, abandoned spot. Your brain just doesn't know how to process that, which makes it feel even creepier than a more obvious threat.
Yeah, exactly. So this mime has the whole look. Painted black face, striped shirt, black pants, but he's got these really exaggerated facial expressions. His eyes get really wide as he sees the kids, and he starts sort of performing at them, but in a way that felt like he was trying to lure them or entice them deeper into the woods where he was hiding.
Oh, that's chilling. Using the performance aspect as bait.
Totally. The kids just instantly knew this was wrong. They turned and ran away as fast as they could. The narrator remembers it was a really hot day, and the mime's makeup looked kind of melted and dingy. His clothes were gross. He knows it sounds unbelievable, but swears it happened.
Yeah.
And he still wonders who that guy was. He figures the man must have just been, simply insane, his mind gone. And he actually finds that possibility even more disturbing than if it had just been a straightforward kidnapping attempt.
That makes sense. It's the horror of the uncanny, the irrational. When someone looks human but acts in a way that completely breaks from expected human behavior, it triggers a really deep fear. An unpredictable, potentially insane person whose motives are unknowable, that can feel much scarier than a threat you can at least understand.
Very true. Okay, story 7. This one happened just last year. Rural area again. Dead end dirt road. The narrator lived there with her husband and their young daughter, who was in kindergarten. They had a morning routine. She'd drive her husband to work, then come back home with her daughter for a bit before driving her down the half-mile dirt road to the main road to catch the school bus. So on this particular day, daughter's off to school, husband's at work, narrator has the house to herself, she's doing some cleaning, hanging up clothes in her daughter's bedroom, she's the TV on in the living room for background noise, and then she hears it, a soft, muffled cough coming from somewhere inside the house. She just freezes, instantly paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Her mind starts racing, trying to explain it away. Maybe it was the cat, maybe the TV. But the feeling that something is wrong is overwhelming.
That freeze response, that desperate internal bargaining to find a logical explanation for something deeply unsettling in your own home, that's such a common reaction. Your safe space feels violated and your brain scrambles, but your gut instinct is usually screaming the truth.
Absolutely. She's too scared to investigate. She just drops everything, runs out the door screaming, and sprints across the yard about a football field's distance to her father-in-law's house next door. Her father-in-law, who's a hunter but on disability, immediately grabs his gun, and they drive back over to her house in his truck. She waits in the locked truck while he goes inside to check. He comes back out after a few minutes, and he asks her, "Did you leave a pack of Newport cigarettes on the floor by your daughter's bed?" He's confused, says no, she smokes Camels. She's never bought Newports in her life. And her father-in-law's eyes just go wide. He looks panicked and tells her, "Call the police. Now."
And there it is, the concrete proof that abstract fear, that uncertain sound, suddenly becomes a terrifying reality. The cigarettes are the undeniable evidence that someone was inside her house. That violation is confirmed.
Totally. So they call the police, but being rural, it takes the state troopers about an hour to get there. While they're waiting, her husband gets home from work, her brothers-in-law show up, they search the woods around the house, find nothing. The trooper arrives, searches the house again, finds no one. Crucially, there's no sign of forced entry. The narrator admits they lived in one of those areas where nobody locked their doors. They even kept a spare key on top of the fridge outside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nothing was stolen from the house either. The trooper takes the pack of Newports as evidence, but without an intruder caught or even a description, there wasn't much more the police could do. But even without an arrest, the incident completely shook the family. They changed all the locks immediately, started actually carrying keys, locked the doors religiously day and night. The narrator says she's still paranoid, hates being alone in the house, even got a dog partly for company and security, and she ends with a warning. Please always lock your doors, no matter how safe you think your neighborhood is. You never know who might just be passing through.
That's such a vital takeaway. It speaks to that illusion of safety we can fall into, especially in familiar or seemingly secure places like rural areas. We let our guard down. And this story is just a stark reminder that basic vigilance, locking your doors, it matters everywhere because someone looking for an opportunity seeks exactly that kind of complacency.
So true. Okay, story number 8 is a bit different. It happened years before the narrator was even born to his parents. They were moving house, driving from Fort Worth, Texas, up to Colorado, where his dad had a new job. For the last leg of the journey, instead of taking a big interstate, they opted for a smaller, less traveled highway, aiming for Highway 14. It's late at night, they've been driving all day, totally exhausted. There are no rest stops out here, so they just pull over onto the shoulder of the highway to try and sleep for a few hours in the car. But the narrator's mother just couldn't get comfortable, felt uneasy. So she decided she'd drive for a while, let the father rest. She starts driving again. They are literally in the middle of nowhere, pitch black, no highway lights, miles and miles from the nearest town, empty road. And she sees him, a single man just walking along the side of the highway. But here's the chilling part, his direction. He's walking away from the spot where they had just been parked a few minutes earlier. Yeah. There's no broken down car anywhere in sight. No reason for anyone to be walking out there in the dark, miles from anything, especially coming from right where they were stopped.
That is pure uncanny valley stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
The complete absence of any logical explanation for his presence there, combined with the timing and direction, it just makes your skin crawl.
Yeah.
Your brain can't make sense of it in that desolate context, which amplifies the fear. What was he doing there? Why was he near their car?
Exactly. The parents apparently didn't talk about it much over the years, but the narrator said they often wondered, what if they had both fallen asleep back there? What might have happened? It just serves as this really stark reminder, as the narrator put it, that strangers out there are strange indeed, especially when you factor in extreme isolation. Okay, for our ninth story, we're back in Australia, rural East Australia, about 14 years ago. The narrator is 12. His family lives on this big 40-acre property, mostly surrounded by rainforest. It's a 40-minute drive just to get to the nearest small town, super secluded. Their closest neighbors are a 10-minute drive away. Unexpected visitors are extremely rare. So one day, this utility vehicle, a ute, just comes roaring down their long driveway, kicking up dust. The narrator's father, described as a hardcore ex-Navy guy, kind of rough around the edges, goes out to see who this unwanted guest is. The man introduces himself as John. He's got this slick, almost salesman-like vibe, but also this really unsettling, overly familiar way about him, like he knows them already.
That combination, uninvited, speeding onto the property, and then that instant forced familiarity, that's an immediate boundary violation. Big red flag behavior.
Definitely. So John explains why he's there. He says he just visited their elderly neighbor down the road and found her dead.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. And then he asks the narrator's father, should we maybe move the body? Make it easier for the police when they get here.
No. That's incredibly inappropriate and deeply suspicious.
Right. The father is outraged, tells him absolutely not, call the police immediately. John does eventually call, but then he just hangs around their house, makes small talk, acts weirdly comfortable until the police finally arrive. The police confirm the neighbor did pass away, but from natural causes. Phew. But the narrator just couldn't shake the feeling about John. Found him really unsettling, mentioned his dark eyes and that pushy, overfamiliar attitude.
Yeah, suggesting moving the body. Even if the death was natural, that's just bizarre behavior. It screams either incredibly poor judgment or something much more sinister, like trying to interfere with a potential scene. You'd be right to be deeply suspicious of him after that.
Absolutely. And it didn't stop there. John starts showing up at their property uninvited over the next few weeks, borrows tools without really asking, sits on their porch playing guitar badly, just generally making the family uncomfortable. The narrator's parents are clearly not impressed. Eventually, the father has enough and tells John, basically, you need to leave now. John's face just twists with rage. He glares at the house, jumps in his ute, and speeds off, yelling profanities out the window. He comes back the next day. The father meets him at the gate and tells him bluntly, don't come back here ever again or I'll smash your face in. John leaves. The father calls the police again, just to report the ongoing harassment. A few weeks go by, things seem quiet. Then they find their mailbox down by the road, completely smashed up. The father immediately suspects John.
So you see the escalation, right? From weird familiarity to rejection to rage, threats, and now minor property damage. It's a classic pattern for someone obsessive or predatory who can't handle boundaries and reacts aggressively when challenged.
Exactly. Then, about a week after the mailbox incident, the family is driving home one afternoon. As they pull up the driveway, the father immediately says something's wrong. He just has that feeling. They get out, look at the house, and realize the bathroom window is missing, just gone. As they get closer, the narrator, who's still 12, looks towards the window and sees him. A man, dark eyes, overfamiliar, coming from the window that led to the shower. It's John.
Oh my God, he was inside.
Or just getting in. He sees them, panics, and bolts out the back, disappearing into the thick bushland behind the house. They check inside. Nothing seems to be stolen. It looks like they interrupted him just as he was climbing in. Police come again, search, but find no trace of him in the bush. No real evidence.
An attempted home invasion with nothing taken. That points away from simple burglary, doesn't it? It feels much more personal, targeted, like it stems directly from that earlier rejection and rage. That's incredibly chilling.
It is. And then comes the final twist. Months later, the narrator starts high school in the nearest town. First day, assembly, teacher introductions, and standing up there, being introduced as one of the new teachers, is the overfamiliar dark-eyed man. John. Except his name isn't John. The principal introduces him as Gregory. Yes. The narrator instantly realizes John is Gregory. He's been using a fake name, and his mind just explodes with terrifying questions. Did Gregory actually kill the old lady? Was the natural causes ruling wrong? Did he suggest moving the body to cover something up? Did he try to frame his father somehow? What else was he lying about? And then Gregory, the teacher, spots the narrator in the crowd of students. Their eyes meet, and Gregory's face just shows pure shock, recognition, horror. He realizes this kid knows his secret, knows he was John. The very next day, Gregory put in for indefinite leave from the school, and he never came back.
Yeah.
The father warned the narrator, be vigilant. He knows who you are now. He might show up again someday.
Wow. That is a gut punch of an ending.
Yeah.
The hidden identity, the potential connection to the neighbor's death, the shift from creepy neighbor to stalker to potential killer. It's horrifying. It just underscores how some threats aren't obvious monsters.
Yeah.
They're people who insinuate themselves into your life, hiding behind a mask, and you only realize the danger when it's almost too late. Chilling.
Absolutely chilling. Okay, one final story for today. This happened just a year or two ago. The narrator, her boyfriend, his cousin, and the cousin's friend decide to go on a multi-day hike. The first day is really tough, exhausting. They set up camp in a pretty isolated spot. That night, the boyfriend's cousin is spooked. Claims he saw flashlights moving around outside their camp, heard people talking, even though they'd barely seen anyone else on the trail all day. The others didn't see or hear anything.
That's a little layer of unease right from the start.
Yeah. Then, day 2, disaster strikes. The boyfriend's toe starts turning black. Looks like serious bruising, maybe broken. He can barely walk. Definitely can't continue the hike. Problem is, they are miles and miles from where they park their car. They struggle with a map, trying to figure out the quickest way to a road. They even end up having to cross a river. It's a real ordeal. Finally, exhausted and stressed, they reach a road. Almost immediately, a pickup truck pulls over. 2 people inside offer help. They explain their situation, the injured boyfriend needing a ride back towards their car. The people in the truck look them over, each one individually. Then, completely straight-faced, one of them says, "Okay, we'll take the girl."
Oh, come on. Just like that, singling her out. That is an incredibly bold and terrifying statement. It cuts right through any pretense of help. It's a direct, chilling declaration of intent, exploiting their vulnerability. Huge, immediate danger sign.
Massive. The group instantly refuses. No way. But the truck isn't big enough for all 4 of them, plus the drivers anyway. So after a quick, tense discussion, the injured boyfriend and his cousin decide they will take the ride back towards the car park, leaving the narrator and her friend. They figure 2 guys are safer than 1 girl alone, and they visibly arm themselves with the hatchets they had on their belts, just in case, as they got in. As the truck door opens for them to get in, a cascade of empty beer cans falls out onto the road.
Not a good sign. Reinforces the bad feeling.
Not at all. So the truck drives off with the 2 guys. The narrator and her friend are left waiting on the side of this remote road. Her friend had the presence of mind to memorize the truck's license plate, thankfully. They wait anxiously. Eventually, their own car appears. The boyfriend and cousin made it back. They said the guys in the truck drove like absolute maniacs, speeding recklessly down the narrow mountain roads, but they did drop them near their car. So the hike was a bust, but everyone was physically okay. They were alive. But the narrator ends by saying she still thinks about it, that chilling offer, and she wonders, what would have happened if only I went with them in their car?
Yeah, that what if is terrifying. This story really highlights how crucial trusting your intuition is and making those quick, collected decisions under pressure. That creepy offer, the beer cans, the cousin arming himself, all those little pieces adding up likely prevented something truly awful. It's a real testament to listening to that gut feeling, even when you're desperate for help.
What a collection of stories. Wow. It really drives home how that feeling of isolation can just magnify any kind of threat, doesn't it?
It really does. That's the common thread, I think.
Yeah.
The isolation itself becomes a character in these stories. When you remove the safety net of society, of easy access to help, of witnesses, Seemingly ordinary situations or slightly weird encounters can escalate into something truly terrifying very quickly. It shows how much we rely on those structures without even thinking about it.
Absolutely. And these accounts really hammer home how vulnerable we are when we step outside those populated protected zones. The human element, that unexpected stranger, the person with hidden motives, it just becomes infinitely scarier when there's literally no one else around for miles. It definitely leaves you wondering, like, how well do you really know the places you go, and who else might be out there just off the path?
And it pushes further, I think. It challenges us to think about the psychological side, too. How does our brain handle threat when the normal rules seem suspended? How do we tell real danger from something just weird when it's cloaked in the unexpected, like a mime or a seemingly helpful driver?
Really powerful questions to ponder. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into some truly chilling real-life accounts from the middle of nowhere. We hope these stories gave you something to think about beyond just the scares. If you found this exploration of fear, isolation, and human encounters as gripping as we did, please consider subscribing to Horror Docs here on YouTube. Hit that like button, maybe share it with someone who enjoys these kinds of true stories. Your support really helps us bring more content like this to light. Check out the description for links as well. Until next time, stay aware, stay vigilant, and maybe stick to the well-traveled roads for a while.